What is up, everybody? Welcome back to Tidal Gardens. I am in the extra chair because we've got some special guests today. So, real quick, we've got March from Fragbox. Is it fragbox.tv?
The site?
Yeah.
Fragbox.ca.
.ca.
Because we're in
Canada.
We're in Canada. We're from the true north.
And we have Paul from the UK. So I actually
What a wave.
I actually met Paul maybe 2018-ish?
Something like that. 2019, I think it was, October, wasn't it?
Never had heard anything about Paul, but it turns out he likely has what many consider to be the nicest store in the entire UK.
Agreed.
What I wanted to do for this podcast, you guys, was just to kind of talk shop. What we have here is somebody that only sells online in Tidal Gardens. We have March that does both online as well as brick and mortar. And Paul has pretty much only been brick and mortar.
At least for the livestock.
Yes, yeah.
Online, you can
Online
buy
dry goods, but yeah, we've
hardware.
always focused on livestock, collect from store only.
So we wanted to talk a little bit about the differences in stores that focus on these different avenues, but also we're all from 3 different countries. And I'm sure that there's some little nuggets of peculiarities that these geographies might present. So I wanted to talk a little bit about that. And yeah, just the goings on of what it is like to be in this business.
Mm-hmm. It's quite the business.
So where shall we start?
Pricing?
Yeah, let's start with pricing.
Pricing,
Yeah.
We don't sell fish. We only sell coral.
Will that ever change? We'll never see tidal fish?
We will most likely never see us do fish, because if you have caught my podcast with Elliot,
yeah.
you'd know I'm awful at fish. It is traumatically bad, our ability to bring in fish, get them healthy, and then the idea of then sending it out. Because again, we're not retail, walk-in retail. So we now have to then ship that fish. It'll probably never happen. But as far as the corals and pricing, I think that we have the reputation of being towards the upper end of the pricing tiers. Perhaps not at the very, very top. I've got some ideas on some other places that might be a little bit more expensive than us, but we tend to be pricier. And
that's good,
I guess, but I think it might be a slight misconception too, because there's plenty of stuff that we sell that is very inexpensive, that is very beginner friendly.
Yeah.
But that's just not necessarily what people want. I think that people kind of get easily dazzled by the hottest in coral, and they want that to be cheap. And it's guys, that's not going to be cheap. That coral sells itself for whatever we ask within an hour.
What's that coral for you right now?
There's several that would be on that list, but for example, a glitter bomb Goniopora.
I can't even get them.
Oh,
at the moment. That'd be something different straight away. We are struggling. They do exist in the UK, but amongst very few people. We're just not seeing those
things fly
in any quantity at all. We get some really special Goniopora, but we never really see the glitter. There's probably 5 or 6 people that might have the red glitter.
So, are you unable to get shipments from Australia?
Eastern Australia, currently at the moment, from Queensland, we currently can't have any of those traditional favourites like Homophilia or the true acans. Yeah, we can't get those currently at the moment. I mean, that may change. I mean, things have changed over the past year, but we're unable to see anything from Eastern Australia. We do see corals from Western Australia currently at the moment, but certainly for that particular species, like the glitter bomb gonies, I think I may have had 1 or 2 of the green glitter bombs around about, I don't know, must be 6 years ago. But I've never, unfortunately, I never put that into culture and sold it, and now regret it. But no, certainly.
Why do you think that there is that restriction on the Australian stuff for you guys?
The UK, I think, I'd have to confirm all this with your friend and my friend Laura Carlin, But I think largely that's down to the UK government's decision, not the Australians by any form, because they were meant to give information to our government authorities about the numbers that were being removed. And we're still waiting for those numbers. And when those numbers come through, I'm pretty sure that we will see Eastern Australian corals again. But at the moment, there's no real reason for the Australians to really worry about doing that when they can sell everything they've got anyway.
Funny that you mentioned that, because I've had a couple of my friends recently go over to Australia, and they have definitely caught on to the appetites for this type of coral. From what I understand, they have glitter bomb gonnies in every color.
Really?
Absolutely every color. And I, like in person, have seen a gold one.
Wow.
And I was telling this person, I was like, he had 3 pieces. Like I was telling him, you need to sell me one of these. Yeah. And they were like, no, we want a culture. It's like, listen, you need to sell me one just for the insurance aspect alone. Like, do not just think that you're going to like grow these by yourself. Sell me one. He thought about it, all 3 dead.
Yeah. And he should have sold you one.
He should have sold me.
It's funny actually, because I'll probably have seen more than I realise, but until these corals get a commercial name, so they've probably passed through my hands many times, but I've never really focused on that particular thing. And when it becomes a focus, then you start looking, and of course the insatiable demand for a particular species that's popular at the time means that then you find it very difficult to get hold of it. So I have probably had them, but not really took any focus until it got the name Glitter Bomb Gonny. So,
Do you guys like personally like or dislike that type of naming?
I think any business owner in the aquatic industry right now, the marketing aspect is how we make our money. But in all honesty, I prefer if we were to just
get rid of them.
Get rid of it all.
I'm a love-hate.
And start with the idea that we should be looking at the animal for it, what it is, its species, and see the beauty in any animal without having a tagline with it. And the other thing is that once we focus on a particular species, that can push it to the limit. I worry about that once we all want master grade scollies, for example, now we can't find as many as we used to. So I'm not so sure that trends on particularly stony coral species is a very sustainable thing until it goes into aquaculture, and depends on the species. But I think solitary polyp animals with a silly name are potentially dangerous. But
I think they're useful though when it gets to the zoas.
I think it's useful when we're talking about, so for example, I once said, well, naming is important, because if we were to sit here and...
Hey, I got Rastas, I'll trade you for your purple monsters.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
Saying.
And if you said strawberry shortcake to me, I know we know what we're talking. We don't have to say Acropora microclados.
That is pink with perhaps like a slightly
colour.
cream color terminal. I'm like, dude, I have no idea what you're talking about.
That's true.
Send me a photo.
So names are handy from that respect. I mean, it's not really that new, is it? Because we've been calling names corals.
How old would you say coral names are?
15, 20 years.
Yeah.
I think, there was...
I've seen it ramp up during my time.
Yeah, I mean, I've got one that goes back maybe 15, 20 years, the Lime in the Sky, and there was the Steve Tyree this, and there was the Steve...
Yeah.
These are... And I think that probably just started from a few hobbyists that were trading corals amongst themselves, and inevitably these corals get a name. But then, of course, there's the commercial aspect that steps in. And then before long, we're naming everything, even when it's not in aquaculture, like glitter. I mean, I know there are glitter bomb gonnies in aquaculture, but certainly the ones that are probably floating about are just recently fragged and maybe only one generation.
You would be surprised, because I think that like typically that coral does not show up on a wholesale list.
Right.
So almost all of the ones that I've ever come across have been aquacultured.
Right.
And every single time that I see something that might be a contender, we typically do try to acquire it, like, if it's on a wholesale list. And almost across the board, it's always a disappointment, because it's not quite it.
They're abusing the name.
They're not even using the name. It's like sometimes we see like, that might be it. That might be it. We should get that, because it's only X number of dollars, right? We try it. It's fine.
So do you think that, for example, with that particular coral, as soon as it's definitely a hot at the moment, the ones that you're seeing, are these in the US only, or is this you've seen know that they're aquacultured in Australia, country of origin, or
Oh, I wouldn't know about that just because we don't import directly.
right?
And so we don't typically communicate with the folks over in Australia.
Right.
That's going to change soon. I actually just got an email from one of like the big exporters there, and they
Yeah.
want to come and visit later this month. But
Right.
generally speaking, I don't have direct communication. I go through wholesalers because
Ah,
I wonder if it's
interesting.
the same wholesaler coming to visit us next month.
possibly
Yeah, probably. Would be
there's
worthwhile
not
trip.
there's not that many big wholesalers in Australia coming over, so it must be the
Right.
same.
Must be the same. Yeah.
But as a coral farm that really is dedicated to aquaculture, we would be a very bad customer as an importing company because we have access to a lot of different wholesalers that do that activity. And realistically, I'm only interested in about the top 1% of what they have.
So why are you going to
Yeah.
go and bring in 15 boxes of coral?
Mm.
And you could just cherry
So that's
pick.
very different straight away. So there's a huge difference there. So a facility as large as this, I would have imagined that there was quite a few wild corals coming in. That then you would, and that's how I imagined it would be. So that's a very different thing because back home we would be seeing a lot more wild animals coming in. I think that's a massive difference straight away.
It's mostly
So-
cultured.
So
Mm.
downstairs, you saw
Yeah.
those Rubbermaid stock tanks.
Yes.
One of those Rubbermaid stock tanks has, I think, 4 corals in it.
Yeah, and I saw a tank with
The big
only 2
acros?
corals in it.
Okay,
So,
that was the one.
Yeah.
That is basically what we would bring in about 3 weeks.
wow. And there I am.
From wild.
I might have about 110 pieces next week.
We
had,
would
the
we had
difference.
220 last week.
we
Did
would
you?
never.
Yeah. Wow.
Like
Look at the scale.
maybe in a year we
Yeah,
would do 200
I
pieces.
think it's fair to say that mine and your shop are tiny
Yeah, and,
We're bringing in-
and unsustainable.
and fairly unsustainable. I mean, I do obviously I do some aquaculture and I want to progress more into that. But we wouldn't be able to keep up with the demands. Everyone wants that choice piece, whether it's we just started to culture an acro. We named it Delirium, and we ran out of frags within a few days.
Because it's
And
nice.
now we're going to
because
have to
it's a good
spend the
name.
next 6 months, a year, growing it out again. We couldn't keep up with demand. I think that comes down to space again, doesn't it? And fuel and all sorts
Yeah.
of things that influence the way that we do things. So, our electricity prices we were discussing earlier, and we just couldn't operate. I think with that level of aquaculture. I don't know.
So I think there's a couple of moving parts there. Part of it is, can you grow the coral fast enough? In order to grow some of these corals to be sustainable, it is just simply a matter of space. You're not going to greatly increase the growth rate of Micromusa lorohoensis or any of the Thymbriophilias. Sure, you can do a couple of things to like min-max that stuff, but
Mm.
really what it's going to take is square footage.
Mhm.
Yes,
You're going to need a lot of space. This
Yeah.
stuff simply grows more slowly.
We don't have that.
we don't have that. And I think the other thing is obviously there's a massive. I think aquaculture could work on a grand scale in the UK, but you would need to find the absolute cheapest possible land price you could in order to achieve
Is that
any sort
Liverpool?
of scale. Not necessarily Liverpool, but certainly you would have to go north, certainly from London anyway. You would never find the ability to do it. I would like to. I mean, I know Laura again, we would love to do more, but I think your costs potentially couldn't get anywhere close to be able to offer something certainly on this scale.
I've noticed a similar trend. Perhaps it's not as extreme as because you guys are roughly 30 minutes from London.
Yes, yeah.
I have noticed that closer to big cities here,
Mm.
there is like this death zone of nobody can really operate, except
Mm.
maybe one or two like kind of like historic stores, perhaps. But you don't see like a lot of stores.
No,
Because of the rent?
well, in London, there's only one store, which is Aquarium Design Centre, ADC. And you think London, with its millions of people,
Mhm.
you would know of at least 6, LFSs that are dotted around. But there's very, very few because
There's 6 within 20 minutes of here.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, easily. the closest one we could literally walk to. It's 4 houses away from here.
No,
It's
wow.
the next saltwater place.
Wow.
But you would never see that in larger cities, not Chicago, not Houston or anything.
Yeah.
I have heard in some of these geographies, there's just nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing
Whereas
at
we
all.
were talking about rent prices in Toronto, very similar to London, aren't they?
Yeah.
So again, you couldn't, there's no physical way that you could.
We're pretty central, but we're not downtown.
Yeah.
Yeah, downtown there's no one. There hasn't been anyone in a long time.
But also just the logistics of shopping downtown. Do you go to
No
London
parking.
very often?
Not hardly at all.
Or downtown Toronto?
Only when
visitors.
only visitors come, then we take them on a tour.
I had a lovely day yesterday. Yeah. But,
I hear that a lot, where like people just simply, it's like, I would never want to go downtown if I could at all avoid it.
Yeah, we avoid it.
I do. There's no desire for me to spend my weekends in the city.
It seems like a wonderful thing to have like millions and millions and millions of people. But at the same time, it is a lot more, I guess, like not even regional. It's a lot more local. Because like outside of 20 minutes, it might as well be on Mars.
This feels like Mars.
Yeah. As I say, I think that's what influences really aquaculture. So there is a company that in the UK now that is specialising in aquaculture. But again, it will be on a smaller scale.
Well, back to his original question, how's the pricing?
I think it depends on what the customers want. That influences my pricing. So, for example, we always try offer a good service and good quality, a good standard, and have people that costs money. So inevitably, I would say that we're probably at the upper end, being honest.
How about compared to pricing in the States?
I think some things are similar. I don't think there's too much difference. But then there are some things that over here that certainly the species that are currently popular and in demand are much higher in the US. But I think overall, once we step back into, once those corals become demoted somewhat, I would say it's fairly the same. I'd say that my pricing's similar to yours as well in Toronto. But I don't think there's too many differences. I do think that people in the US are prepared to pay more for a coral than those in the UK. I think that influences what we see in the UK. Particularly, it is hard to try and appease the customers with the fact that they want the latest hot coral and it costs a lot of money, and and of course if you influence those costs into it as well, that will influence it as well. But our fish pricing, I know it's a different thing to coral, but our fish pricing in the UK is considerably less than it is in the US generally. Depending on the species, of course, if they're Pacific species, they're generally very reasonable in the US, but anything from the Indian Ocean and going in that direction, I would say that the UK is extremely fortunate on fish price. Coral pricing.
And you also bring fish direct.
I do bring a few fish direct.
You're skipping a wholesaler and going straight to retail.
I never ever choose to skip a wholesaler. I do that to be able to for a way of trying to make the store look different, because we're limited by the amount of wholesalers we have in the UK. There's very much only one that dominates in the UK. So I try and wherever I can reach out a little bit and try and give the store a little bit more diversity. That's probably another big difference between the US and the UK, is that you have a sort of plethora of wholesalers, whereas in the UK we have very few.
Is that the same sort of thing in Canada as well? Like,
we have one. His name's Patrick, and he's downstairs.
He's
here
we
with
found him.
He somehow snuck into the van. He's quite small, so you can
we found the Canadian wholesaler.
Yeah, very creative name. It's called Reef Wholesale.
You won't forget it.
That is interesting, because there are so many wholesalers here that it becomes not so much a hassle to find them, but it's a hassle to vet them, because all wholesalers are not created the same.
No.
There's a dramatic difference between what I would consider not the greatest wholesaler in the world and a very, very good wholesaler. And I just happen to be very fortunate that I live an hour away from a very good wholesaler.
Okay.
They're expensive, but
they're good.
I can see exactly what they are doing with that money.
Expensive is okay if you're getting what you pay for.
And that's
if the
what
value's there. There's no problem.
Absolutely, and that's how we, I don't inflate prices because I feel that I can get away with it. I inflate prices to give the customer what I think they want to see and expect, and that's the same with fish. Again, if you go to a wholesaler that's offering good fish, you don't mind paying for them, yeah, and the same with corals. But
I always say that you cannot save money on dead animals.
no, it's true.
And
Good saying.
Yeah, good saying.
And a lot of stuff, it's like sometimes I will have to just be professionally curious. And it's like, I will give you a try. Like if you're a new wholesaler, and again, we're not a great wholesale customer. We don't buy a lot. So it's like, you know what, I'll throw you one transaction. I want to see. Like,
do you order with your names, like bill us to Tidal Gardens, or do you do it under like a?
Oh no, we don't do it like slyly or anything. But
pretend to be someone else just to see how they would treat you if they didn't know you were.
No, sometimes they goof up my order. Like it's not even good enough. That's like, oh, you're selling this at Tidal Gardens, make this good. It's like, no, they'll screw it up too, because they don't know any better. Like sometimes it is just that is how they do it, and this is just their normal. And it's like, you just put all my corals in a single bag, sort of thing, and shipped it here. Like that's not a good idea. Like you're off the list.
Bye.
Yeah.
Would you say that you have? So, how many wholesalers would you guess that you might have in the US?
100 easily.
Wow.
So in the UK, unfortunately, we don't have enough. Is how I see it. It's
You're
very
saying
difficult.
There's a market.
It's very difficult to. No one can beat the Kings. So therefore, there's there's very few people that come through with wholesale. I mean, it's and also I don't think a lot of stores in the UK appreciate what a wholesaler can bring. I think there's always this potential for a race to the bottom. Like you said, there's no. What did you say about there's nothing in dead animals there? But that saying you just quoted there. So there's probably not enough. There's not enough competition, which means that wholesalers don't have to try harder. Yeah.
So wholesale is such a different game than what we do. So like for us, we want to get top tier corals because strangely, they sell the easiest for the most money.
Yeah.
Like, of course, that's what we want, right? Well, at the wholesale level, the quality of the wholesale business is not your ability to sell those top corals. Again, those corals sell themselves. You need to be able to sell the other 99%.
Yeah.
Effectively.
Yeah.
Because if you take a look at the next step in the chain going back, like the collector / importer overseas, they want you to clear out all of their tanks. They want you to fill a 747 full of product.
Yeah, you can't take all the cherry corals.
No, and that's the problem. That's a serious problem, actually. And that's what I mean when we're talking about naming corals, for example. Once a coral becomes trendy, there's very few corals that hobbyists actually want. So we stock, I don't know, probably, I'm guessing we've probably got in the store today, probably 500 to 1,000 corals, say. Yeah. But there'll only be 5 or 6 species that are hot potatoes. Yeah. And the reality is, I think that the culture has become very much like a trophy collecting culture, as opposed to a loving the animal. It doesn't matter what animal it is. I still see the beauty in a brown green Cinerina, but actually they only want the red one. That's also a thing. So wholesalers are struggling because, of course, like you said, they, your average exporter, they can't just give you that glitter bomb goner. You've got to buy the rest to go with it.
Good with the bad.
And then what happens to those corals? So as I said, it's a very difficult thing. You get to appease an exporter and to appease a wholesaler. You can't just cherry pick.
If you don't, they will not send you the good stuff.
Yeah.
I have one guy you can cherry pick, but you pay for it. Like he will do all what you see is what you get. And
really?
You pay through the nose. Yeah, he's quite expensive. Yeah. But you have to take a lot. But you don't have to take anything you don't want to take. You're just going to end up.
That is a relatively new phenomenon, I think.
Overseas, yeah.
Yeah, because typically it is it's a situation of it is a volume game, and it is what have you done for me lately. It is not don't tell me about that order you placed like 3 months ago. It's like
I think even if they could appease you with giving you the absolute best, the cherries as we say, then you've got the issue with freight.
Mm-hmm.
So you must do the numbers, the box numbers. In order to keep the corals where hobbyists want to pay for them, you've got to do the numbers. And I think that's another difference between the US, again, is that, well, that's what I meant by, I think over here, people are prepared to pay more for that piece than they would perhaps do in the UK generally. There's a hardcore fraternity in the UK that would pay anything for them, but they're a very small number of people. You know, most people probably couldn't afford to pay for some
What's
of the corals.
What's the average selling price of a coral here?
I would say between 50 to 100, perhaps, in that ballpark.
Yeah, well, I suppose that's probably
US.
similar. Is that US dollars?
US.
Not Canadian dollars.
Yeah. Well, that's probably
we're about
similar.
10 to 40 Canadian.
Really?
Yeah. Most popular pieces.
Yeah.
Somewhere in there.
I suppose in the store, when I look at sales, I suppose, generally, I suppose, it's probably similar. I suppose when I really think about it, we don't sell, you know, a £300 chalice coral every day of the week. Certainly not.
You know, that just made me think about a chalice coral specifically. Because there's certain corals that, now that more people are doing aquaculture, there is a huge supply of certain corals that just do really well in captivity. And over the years, they're very inexpensive.
What coral are you thinking in particular?
Oh,
Raja Rampage?
Like plating Montipora. It's sure with chalices, it'll be like that variety of a Echinopora, which is the Raja Rampage or like the Avatar chalices.
I
and
saw
stuff
your
like that.
Rainbow Monty trays downstairs where the plugs have taken over the tray and they've just like gone out, where you just have this like 10-inch by 10-inch sheet
Don't
of
you think
Rainbow
that's sad?
Monty. No, I think it's so cool.
No, what I mean by that is that so we get a beautiful coral that's hardy in captivity, and if you're really interested in aquaculture as such, so I've got the same problem in the smaller farm where I've got all these beautiful paloensis, but they sort of fell out of fashion.
Growing faster than you sell them?
Growing faster than I can sell them.
Maybe your price too high.
Well, even if you price them low, that's not the hot potato, and that's what I mean about the trophy collecting nature. So instead of, you know, at the end of the day, it's a buyer's market. So it's so you get a coral really hard in captivity. You start to grow it out. You've got lots of it. It's really doing really well, and then it sort of falls out of fashion. What do you do with it? I mean, I've still got corals that are brown. I keep all of them like a library, hoping that one day they'll come full circle and
maybe they need
come
a new
back
fancy name. Maybe
that's
it's
the
a marketing
thing, and that's
problem.
where the marketing thing comes in. You see, but as I said, you can't rename something which has already been named.
Watch me.
Oh, people do it all the time.
Yeah.
People do it all the time.
Yeah.
But you know, some of those things, like we can just be very price competitive on that. And as long as we're not like losing money on shipping it, for example, we're comfy making that very accessible. But I was just thinking again about like the wholesale side of stuff. That exporter overseas is going to send you that exact thing for quadruple the retail price.
Absolutely, yeah.
And you're expected to now take that as a wholesaler. And what is a wholesaler supposed to do with this? They cannot sell
Yeah, I see that. Yeah.
a Raja Rampage for $300 at any size. It doesn't matter, but it's going to be the size of your hand. And it's going to be so expensive to land that coral domestically here. And at that point, it's like, oh my gosh. I think I've actually heard some wholesalers in the States say, you know what? Bill me for the coral. Just don't ship it to me. Like, just you will make your money on that piece. Just don't send it to me.
I lose on some. There's some pieces I just do a ridiculous price as a loss leader to clear the coral out, and then in the hopes that they're not going to buy just that one. They're going to take, you know, $300-$400 order, and that's sort of
local for like in-person shopping.
Yeah. Or we'll even ship it. Sometimes I'll start doing this new thing where we offer free shipping on a certain piece. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just maybe not the most valuable. We tack on free shipping. No one likes to pay for shipping.
No.
And that will help kind of move that piece. So we make room for the next thing.
We see that on fish as well. So, for example, recently imported some fish that are way more expensive than they should be. But in order to get a cherry, there's a certain cherry from a certain island I wanted, but we had to be able to get the box numbers up. And it worked out that a firefish landed and was costing me £33, when the retail price on something like that is only about £29. So we sold all those at a loss in order to get
firefish, like a goby.
Fire. I think you call them fire gobies. Firefish is what just a standard bred firefish. It's not particularly, but they're in Indian Ocean. They were really nice, but we took a loss on those to get those. And I think that's happening more and more and more. If you want those choice pieces or those cherries, you're having to sell the rest of it, sometimes below cost.
That's nothing new, though.
I don't know. It's fairly new for me.
Mm.
I think as I said, I think the culture, like I said, has changed somewhat.
You just visiting Canada, did you have a chance to compare and contrast our pricing compared to maybe here or to your place?
In the past, when I've visited over here before, I've seen. I mean, that's the other thing. I think it's always a bit of a myth that I don't see. There's always a few pieces. I saw a few pieces downstairs a little while ago, but I thought it's amazing. I've not seen that before. But there's very few. I think the UK believes that it's always amazing. You've always got something rarer than what we would have.
Grass is always greener, right?
Grass is always greener.
If Dan goes to your place or my place, I'm sure he'll see something that for us is
well,
whatever.
You did, and I know even
with the Digi.
Yeah, Mike Paletta once he came to me and I had a deep water Hystrix, like a green one. It's very if you put it under lights, it goes brown. Keep it low, it goes green. That wasn't here, and he took a piece, and it was like it's amazing, And it's like for me, it was a weed. And the same with you. The one that looks like a Montipora, that I think is actually a Porites or something like that. You was amazed by it, weren't you?
Yeah, but the pieces we see here that we get excited for are worth getting excited for.
Yeah.
not just a peculiarity.
You're not like, oh, look at this little birds. No, they're like
Yeah.
like plate corals pretending to be bounce mushrooms. They're worth the excitement.
I think everyone always thinks the grass is greener. I think that's a natural human thing to do. I mean, there's certainly more availability here. You'll see, even downstairs when I was in your farm march, just downstairs in the table, I saw species there that I've not seen in the UK, but you say they don't sell very much.
Warms my heart to hear you say that.
What was that? Is it Leptastria or something you had? Or
Mr. Freeze Leptoceras.
Yeah, we don't have that in the UK.
Like a blue encrusting weed of a lepto.
You will one day, and it'll
proliferate the way that they all do. They just someone has to get the frag there.
But don't you find though that the species that are in high demand and there's never enough of them, so you end up growing corals that generally, even though you said you can accommodate a lower price, don't you find
bounce that mushrooms for us are still
Yeah.
Do
you think there are corals then that maintain their value?
Oh, there definitely are. Yeah.
The ones that die, like stratosphere zoanthids. I can't keep Walt Disney long term.
Yeah.
It's corals that either grow very, very slowly or corals that die.
Ice fire enchilada.
Don't you think that's a bit sad?
Yeah.
Shouldn't we be encouraging corals that are hardy, that never die?
You start and I'll follow.
Well, that's why I've been encouraging more soft coral sales lately, because I believe that certainly for beginners and people, even actually not just beginners, people that are coming back to the hobby or people that are finding it financially difficult, I don't want to hear about corals dying.
I wonder if we are kind of in our own little bubble of very high-end enthusiasts, because this is not very typical of literally 99% of the market or customer base.
Mm-hmm.
I think that for the real market that's out there, there's no such thing as a hardy coral.
True.
It's a flippin' bloodbath out there.
Yeah, I would agree.
They go to the big box stores they're not necessarily, great at keeping stuff alive in their own store.
Mm-hmm.
The typical hobbyist is not online doing any research. They might just be completely relying on whatever local store that they have.
They need to get on Tidal Gardens YouTube.
That's actually one of the reasons why I made the Tidal Gardens YouTube thing. It's almost like
educate, right?
Yeah, it's practically an intervention.
Stop killing the corals I'm selling you. Keep them alive.
That would be wonderful.
Would be ideal.
I was a customer once said to me actually about but you need them to die. I said, what do you mean? Well, because if the corals live, then you're not going to sell any more to me. I said, no, that's not how it is. Is that I want you to progress and hopefully you expand your system and get into it more and more.
And get a bigger tank and
absolutely.
Keep those alive.
I mean, maybe there are LFS owners out there that see that sort of vision, but I certainly
There definitely are.
No,
Patrick has a saying.
I don't want to live in that world.
Patrick has a saying where he says, your worst customers are your best customers. Whether he's right or wrong.
Not for me.
But that's not good.
It's not. No, we don't ever want them to kill them.
No.
But
well, I don't.
I find that when they do, after a crash, is when they spend the most. They want to sort of recover and get it. Either if they don't quit,
Well, you say that, then they quit. So for me, this is one of the reasons why I was
they
encouraging.
take a break.
Now, I've been focusing my time more and more on soft corals, not because obviously the enthusiasts, the serious enthusiasts like Panta, is that they're looking for those rare pieces that you say are very they're not hardy, yeah. But I've seen a lot of joy recently in hobbyists that have either coming back or people that have had to scale down because of the energy crisis and the cost. And I say just do it. Look at, and so I put a tank in the shop. It's just filled with soft corals.
Keep mushrooms and
And
solids.
I put a tons wave box on it, so everything's moving nicely. That tank is more popular than my £60,000 stony coral dominated reef tank.
If it is the same tank that I'm thinking of that I saw back in roughly 2018, that was my favorite tank in your store.
And it's also
You've
lit.
been to his place.
Mm-hmm.
I've been to your place, and you've been to my place.
Mm.
So now we just need him to my place to complete the trifecta.
Yeah.
This is the only connection we're missing here.
I do need
Yeah.
to get out of the house and head over to Toronto.
But as I say, I think we should be encouraging all aspects of the hobby and not just those superstar corals.
Yeah, I think a lot of it does come down to space for both the seller and for the hobbyist, because there might be a trend towards people going towards smaller tanks, like a reef casa, for example. But I think that when people do have like a crunch for space like that, they're only going to want a handful of like the choicest things to collect. A smaller store might not be able to have a soft coral tank. Like here downstairs, like Tidal Gardens is not like the biggest store in the world, but it's pretty big. All things considered,
It's pretty big.
I'd say it's pretty big.
You haven't seen the greenhouse yet.
I've not.
We
seen
did
it.
Yeah, there's another building.
Yeah, I know.
We did
Full
a
of
quick
coral.
walkthrough. We came up here and started this. You've seen
No.
less than half.
But we definitely have room to do a large 600-gallon soft coral display. And we're slowly building up towards that. And I'm actually hoping that that sort of coral gets more popular because people are missing out.
Looking at an aquarium under 14K light rather than Smurf blue is astonishing. It's the new reef tank.
It's the new
It's the
new old
80s.
tank.
It's the 80s, 90s reef tank. It's so lovely. I haven't got a water change here. I haven't got to waste loads of money on start. You know,
You don't have to test it.
No, just do it. You know,
There are no real pests
well, there are
But
always coral pests, but as I
that'll
said,
eat your leathers.
yeah, I mean, the
Yeah.
nudibranchs and stuff.
yeah, there's nudibranchs, particularly on sort of cladula, and you'll always find pests. But you know, if you get it right, it's the most rewarding for me. I mean, I've got all of those fancy corals. I'm growing all these fancy corals, or trying to. And actually, the tanks that bring me joy is where I started from. And there's something about looking at corals under natural colour temperatures.
Well, they're meant to be viewed.
I've started, and also you don't have to use your Jaffa lens, you know. But just
You
looking
know
at
what a Jaffa lens is?
I don't.
that's where the Jaffa cake thing comes in, because I get delivered Jaffa cakes every week, even though I've been losing a lot of weight and not eating too much sugar. I get delivered Jaffa cakes every week from customers, because there was a sort of thing about when I used to have customers come in, they used to say, I want what they've got in the USA. I want a Walt Disney Acro. I want this, I want that. And I go,
Is that how your customers sound?
not really, no. And then they, and basically they couldn't quite understand, because they were seeing all these images, all these marketing images coming from the US, coming over to the UK. And I go, we've got those corals. I go, no, I want this one. Or one of them, or corals like those, should I say. Not lineage corals, but we've certainly got those corals coming in from Indonesia and places like, create your own, you know. And then one day, a gentleman I know called Lee, who's also a friend of Laura Carlin, he brought me in a sweet wrapper. This was before there were phone filter lenses. So it was just an orange sweet wrapper, Quality Street, I think it was. And he put it in front of his phone, and we took this picture of this coral. And then the next minute, we had people asking for this coral straight away. Up to that point, I was taking pictures of corals under 14K light.
Jaffa lens.
And anyway, the Jaffa is a Jaffa cake. Of course, he's an orange.
Interesting.
Yeah. So that's how we sort of.
Gotcha.
And now, of course, that's all we seem to do is appease.
You know what? What was really, I had the most bizarre experience. Downstairs, we have like an SPS show tank that's like dominated by Acropora.
The big one?
Yeah.
Beautiful.
And you can see that it's different colors, right? The corals are differently colored from one another.
Yes, some are this color, some are that color.
Right. And under daylight, you can also see that they're still different colors. They're not like super fluorescent, but you can absolutely tell. I went to this really high-end Acropora seller's house, and he had this blue light array over his Acropora tank, and literally everything in there looked blue. Like there was no color separation, and it was only under orange filter that you could see the crazy colors and stuff coming out.
Because the blues were so strong?
It was the weirdest experience because I've never seen that before. Like I always thought that these lenses are trying to just make it so that your camera phone can handle the blue light, and it's supposed to at least try to get you close to what you could see with your eyes. But it was literally, I'm looking with my eyes, and there's no color other than blue. It was the weirdest thing I've ever seen.
Well, that's what I was saying earlier on about, so since all of this sort of marketing came along as such, as we'll call it, and I'm guilty of it too, but that's why I think that people should focus more on the actual animal they're keeping. You know,
Forget the name.
Yeah. You know,
say it on the channel all the time. Forget the name.
Yeah,
buy the ones you like.
I mean, at the end of the day, who really cares? If you're really into reef keeping, if you're really into this hobby, you should be focusing on the species, not on the marketing. But I can't make a living from that way anymore. I used to, but not anymore.
It's the number one question that people would ask if you had something that did not have a name. It is, what is the name?
That's I know.
First question anybody's
going
going
to
ask.
Customers that get upset if there isn't a name.
Oh, yeah, they
I'll
do.
tell them, oh, I don't know, we took it out of the ocean. What, so it doesn't have a name? No, it doesn't have, it's a zoanthus. I can make up a name. I can pull one out if you like. But it's almost like the customers are creating this demand and a little bit of this monster. This thing is it's if they stop caring about the names, we'll stop caring about the names. We'll revert gladly back to Latin names.
That will pass all the way down the chains, because now, of course, we're very aware. Indonesians have got iPhones too. You know, when I started this trade, they didn't have this connectivity to the rest of the world. So what I'm seeing now on worldwide price lists, particularly because I'm importing quite a lot of corals, is the prices are getting sky high because there's a demand. There's now a demand. Whereas before, I don't begrudge them earning more money. They deserve to earn more money. It's not just
the name. They can see your price.
Absolutely. They can see our price on a website and things like that. But of course, when we first started, you know, it's very different. So the corals have actually increased in price dramatically since this culture's developed.
Technology.
I
faxed in my first order of corals.
You faxed it?
Yeah, faxed it.
Do you know, Connor?
My mom's fax.
We were asked to send a fax to someone not that long. I think it was PayPal. It was an affidavit that we had to sign, something to do with some issue. And I said to Connor, you need to fax. He said, Dad, what's a fax?
Hold on, my pager's ringing.
Yeah, in my pager. Yeah.
Time.
I started Tidal Gardens, I think, right around 2002. And this was during the time when, in order to make a wholesale order of any kind, business to business, it was all done by fax. I pride myself in never, ever owning a fax. And it was,
how did you fax it?
I literally, so my philosophy at the time was, if some company out there wants me to fax them an order, I'm doing business with the wrong company. And I've never faxed in an order.
And you never looked back.
Never looked back.
Now look where we are.
Somehow it worked out. And you know what? I just applied for an account at with Two Little Fishies, and they wanted a fax number. I'm like, nah, Julian, you don't get one.
Julian, yeah.
You can text me, dude.
I can only email.
You got to get Julian on this podcast.
You got to get Julian here, yeah.
I've invited him.
Yeah, get him here. I would watch that.
It does feel good when it happens because, so Polyp Lab, for example, is a sponsor of this channel. And I did a sponsored video just talking
Phil
about...
Gilbert.
Yeah, Phil Gilbert.
Canada.
Go Canada, right? But I did a sponsored video about reef primer specifically.
I love it.
The day that I published that video, I get a message from a very large online seller here in the US. He was like, I wondered what happened. Because it's like all of a sudden there's like this giant uptick, and like, what the heck just happened to the demand on this?
I've never used it.
It was you.
Okay.
Is it
That's
good?
my number one deal.
My go-to is Revive, but
I use both. two different products there. I do a lot of acros, don't I? So I love Phil knows as well. I mean, I know people know that there's different ingredients and they can make it themselves or whatever. But what I really like about it is the one shot. So, for example, a new hobbyist comes in, they may be there just branching out into the world of SPS corals. You sell them the one shot primer with their. I mean, obviously we dip all of our corals and we hope that, but we try and educate that you should, be dipping anyway, irrespective. And the thing with primaries is that I never see any fatalities with.
It's very gentle.
It's very gentle.
Yeah. It's more
tough
gentle.
on pests.
Yeah, but it's So we have Revive. We have almost everything here practically.
Coral RX.
We have Coral
Dip
RX.
X.
Yeah. It is because it's potassium salt based. It is highly effective on the stuff that we're really looking to kill, and it is super delicate with corals.
I want to try it, Phil. If you're watching.
It was the first time actually, because I was, Icefire Echinata when it's coming in from the wild.
Yeah, we don't even dip those. Those are so.
They're just like if you dip it, it's going to die.
Yeah,
they're ready to die when you look at them.
I'm not if you use primer. And as I said to you, the thing is the formula as such is that for us it's more a question of maybe we could find a potassium chloride ourselves and we could do this, we could do that. But the instructions are there, and if you sell that product, especially new hobbyists will. Not kill their coral.
Sounds like you really like it.
I do.
Did you prep them before the podcast?
No, it's not true at all. Phil will tell you, we probably, 200, 300 pounds trade a month.
Let's end on this particular topic about, because you were thinking about getting into like more of the online stuff, but there are some serious hurdles.
What was that breath?
It's your fault. Mostly.
Lay it on me.
It's mostly your fault.
Oh, I know why.
Because you said what you. I can't say that word that you said, but
use another word. The English vocabulary is.
Oh,
you invented.
You're a silly fool.
Is that what I said? I know what I said to you.
Yes, you do now.
Silly fool.
Because it is true. We do get asked to post corals all the time, and I've done for about 10 years.
Oh, so your customers are asking you.
Yeah.
But I'm the silly fool. But
because you pushed me over the edge, I suppose, and that's what made me really want to do it. And actually, it was actually a conversation I think I had with Fan around about 2 years ago at Reef Palooza, and I sort of asked about a few sort of worrying thoughts I had, like when things go wrong.
Happens all the time. Things go wrong all the time.
No, I don't like things going wrong. That's the big problem with me personally. I just don't like things going wrong. And I think the personal customer experience of coming to store, choosing with your eyes, like you would if you go to a garden
How about
center.
People that absolutely love your brand, they've seen your YouTube, they've seen our YouTube, they've seen the podcast, they want to support you, and they live near wherever. They're in Scotland, and they want to get, it's not feasible to drive 10 hours, but they're ready to open and send you their
before COVID,
their pounds.
People did used to get in the car and drive huge distances to us. So we used to see people from Europe as well. We used to see, pre-Brexit, we'd have people from Belgium, and we even had people from Pakistan. We've had people from Greece come to AAC before. So I never really saw the benefit of really putting more workload to sell a coral for the same price.
I'm curious, what did you tell him when he asked you?
I was basically asking Fan when it's the second time or third time I met Fan, basically, what do you do when things go wrong? And Fan just said, just give me the money back.
Pretty much.
Yeah. I adopted that lesson from you. We talked about in New York.
Get this off your plate immediately.
Move it.
I think the problem is that at first, so there are times when things go wrong, but there are times when you know that it might be that you killed it, maybe.
But there's also a lot of times where things go right, and you send someone a box of coral, and they show up as they're supposed to, on time, they're happy, healthy, and grow, and then you get this glowing review, and you feel great, and you've served someone that you normally wouldn't have, and you've...
Well, it's a new thing. It's a new generation. I think that's where obviously there's I hope that retail would be king. I think online retail is going to be king.
Me and Dan, and we're going to walk you into the 21st century.
No, but when things do go wrong, so for starters, shipping is expensive and can go wrong, and nobody's going to cover anything. So
what do you use down here? UPS?
Yes. These are UPS mugs brought to you by UPS, right? They are probably the most expensive courier service here.
Over FedEx?
They're way more expensive.
Oh, for us, FedEx is like 30% more in Canada, but they get there pretty much on time to most areas.
Kind of flip-flopped here.
Depends on the area?
It's I think generally speaking, so it changes because we used to use FedEx as well, and they changed over time, and then UPS became better, and then UPS is more expensive and better. But who knows? In the future, it might be back to FedEx. But regardless, like shipping issues happen. There was just a hurricane that hit the southeast. All kinds of stuff gets delayed. Delays happen. Sometimes, like
you guys have such a big country too. Like it could be freezing here, and you're shipping to Nevada, so you're going from, as cold as it gets on the earth to as hot as it gets. Like how do you?
It's an art. It's a lot of experience. It is a situation of we do put in a heat pack, but we want the heat pack to expire before it gets into the
different hour heat pack further away from the bag, a bigger bag, a different box.
And how many holes you punch in to deprive it of oxygen so that you stop the reaction.
How many customers do you get that say there's holes in the top of my box and you have to tell them it's...
Almost
never.
No? But there's the logistics of the shipping itself. That's always going to be a worry. Because if anything goes wrong, it is always going to be your responsibility, no matter what.
Yours, you mean you?
Me. So if UPS or whatever service loses a $1,000 order, I get to refund $1,000. Maybe I can convince them, you know what, I think we have every single one of your corals.
We'll replace it.
And I will just send out another one. So I am now paying shipping twice.
But if they're corals that you grow,
I can do that. I can do that, right? But if it's a lot of what you see is what you get, wild stuff that's like scalemia or anything like that.
Unique species.
That's going to be a refund, right?
Yeah.
You ever see on the other sites, like retailers that say, we are not responsible for carrier delays, weather delays?
Yeah, you see it all the time.
How do they do that? Because we cover everything.
Right,
so
but
how do they get away with that?
It's a luxury of more established businesses that can take that hit.
Okay.
Because I wasn't always able to take that hit. Like, 15 years
ago. That's where that changes. That's the so for example, this conversation at the minute is more about your shipping stuff. Now, have you ever seen the roads in the UK?
Yes.
So can you imagine all them little windy little roads and everything? I think the difference is over you're very well connected. You can,
in some ways. Canada,
look at the journey here today. It was one road.
Yeah,
it was one road.
It was more or less
all the
straight.
way forever.
Yeah,
And I think in the UK, one of the problems we've got is that our road, we've got the population's huge, but our road network's poor. Our courier network's a little bit shoddy.
I am absolutely certain you can get a package to wherever you need to in the UK.
Are there other people in the UK
you can.
shipping
90% on our dry goods, for example, most of our dry goods arrive on time. Yeah, I would say mostly. And I think that the fear is that, when it becomes livestock, it generally is that, there are companies in the UK that have been shipping livestock like Laura does. And, there are a few others. I know Signature Frags.
So you're not reinventing the wheel?
No, I'm not reinventing the wheel. No, it's been done for ages. But I think the reason why I've always stepped back is because the store is incredibly busy. And there's a time when, most of the time, and I think the problem, the big fear is that someone walks in, which is why I'm building this new section. Someone walks in and goes, I really want that. So you sell that, but you didn't even have the nanosecond to find out it's just sold online, which means that now you're going to disappoint someone. You don't have that problem because you're closed. But you see, for me...
But sometimes you do walk-ins?
Yes, very rarely, but yes. So that there is some logistics to that. I would agree.
A little bit of a dance. Because as someone is buying it online, you could be literally checking out someone for that same piece.
Yeah.
And I've not got, you could say, well, why haven't you got an EPOS system then that works? Well, we're a small retailer,
I haven't found a way to connect the online store with WYSIWYG to an in-store retail. If anyone out there knows of a way.
I'm sure there is one, but, we're small retailers.
It changes so often with WYSIWYG.
It would be a challenge, but
very challenging.
Well, that's why
people do it.
Going for the idea of, if people want it, then I'm prepared to put the investment in, and that's why we're currently in the process of sort of rebuilding a small section of the farm in a new place, whereby I've got complete control over what animals are passing through the business. So that's why I feel like that needs to be done. Laura, of course, doesn't have walk-ins as well, and there are other people I know. For example, Signature Frags, which is a very good business. They don't have necessarily walk-ins all the time. They might be open of a weekend, but then open for 5 days a week. We're a busy store. You know,
You're
and
adding a whole new chapter and
it's a
level.
whole new
Tell
workload.
Fan about your triple quarantine procedure that you're going to do.
It's like you're digging me out about this.
No, I just
You've
want
been
some.
going on about this the whole journey.
I want someone else's opinion. I'm not going to say a word. I want to hear what he says about how you're planning.
Basically, at the moment, we have 2 systems whereby that we're trying to grow a few corals in one particular system that is, you know, we hope is pest-free, relatively so. There's still the Asterinas, the bastards. But Asterinas, I know. Don't matter how hard I try, you know. But so there's one system what I call a completely clean system. And there's another system that I trust less. And I think that as I progress into a little bit more aquaculture and want to progress more, so now I've got like a triple system whereby we bring
quarantine.
Yeah, so basically, as the corals come into the new system, they'll go, even from the ones that are already, I suspect, to clean. You know, I don't believe in this idea that you can have completely pest-free corals. I think you're just asking yourself for trouble. I think you can't quarantine that bacterial issue.
But the idea is to triple quarantine before it ever...
On the aquaculture stuff, not on the wild stuff. I think with the wild stuff, you have to accept or learn, depending on what price you want to buy. So, for example, those... we may well be offering those, perhaps those wild maricultured species on our potential online store from the store. That's where we're going to have to be a bit careful. But on the aquaculture stuff, I want to try and at least work harder to make sure that everything is right. So it comes into system 1. I'm really happy. Recut off its tail or its base, moved into 2, and then from 2 into 3.
Every single frag before it gets...
I think it's fine.
It's admirable, but will it work?
Probably not.
No.
Long term?
Definitely not.
The idea is there. You're a gentleman.
That's not to say that you won't be successful. Just because I was not successful. But there's like degrees to it. Like the effort itself is so effective, but the idea that like, oh, it's a failure if you don't get to the 0 pest in your system level, that's a failure. No, it's definitely not.
I think if
on a long enough time frame, you will have every pest.
If anything, you're doing a disservice to the hobbyists because you're coddling them, because you're preventing them from the pests they're going to get from the next, they're going to buy from another retailer. They're going to get the pests anyways.
Absolutely. This is one of the problems with it is that I know...
We don't charge for our pests. All of our Aptasia comes absolutely free. I've never charged once for
well, it's really true because I think, as I say, it's very admirable of those companies that, you know, we're pest-free. But ultimately, hobbyists, are they loyal?
Anyone offer
Are hobbyists loyal?
Okay, so I have seen people claim pest-free. I have literally never seen that to be true.
Not long term. In the short, I see people go with good intention.
Every single place I've ever seen in person has had pests, no matter what they have said.
I think
every single one.
I think it matters less and less. The more you're in it, you just become accustomed. It's just something you deal with.
You have to manage these issues. These are very real things that could be problematic. Don't necessarily are always problematic. Like Asterina starfish.
I don't think they're bad.
I think there's different varieties. I think we're learning more and more about them. There's a red speckly one, which I think is a little bit naughty compared to the grey one.
I agree. We have both kinds. The ones in the greenhouse are the darker variety that has like the red spots. It absolutely does eat Possilopora.
Yeah.
The ones that are like marble white, the ones that are down there,
they're okay.
They're
algae eaters.
Are the best cleanup.
They'll eat some. Why are they always missing 1 arm minimum?
Because they reproduce that fast.
Yeah. They grow so quickly.
There is a problem with the grey ones, I think, Thane.
There could be.
There is one, and that is that they remove coralline algae. Now, you might not want coralline algae.
I don't.
Who does?
I like it. Stops your egg crate from going wonky.
Until I'm glad that we're diving into the weeds. So downstairs, I actually have a problem with coralline because a little bit of coralline keeps a lot of other problematic algae at bay.
Yeah,
it's like a natural defense.
It is. However, once it gets thicker, then it becomes a substrate for certain types of macroalgae, like ulva, like the lettuce.
Yeah, true.
And so we have to play this game of we need to remove just enough coralline to prevent alga growth, but not bleach it all clean to the point where now it is growing hair algae and problematic stuff. Because the cleanest, newest trays within a couple weeks is going to be a hair algae farm.
Yeah.
But once you just get that slight stubble of coralline, it's like perfect. But then you have to kind of watch it. And when it gets too thick, now we have to like get back in there.
Yeah, I've definitely seen arguments taking place between chalice corals and coralline algae. We had when the Bugatti. Yeah, I've had a Bugatti chalice that we were nursing when they were new, when they were a lot of money.
What kind of chalice?
Like the rainbow chalice. But there was definitely a point where when they were wild, when I first got my first ones, that there was a coralline algae that was absolutely competing directly with it. But I always think that if you can see spots of coralline algae, you've got the building blocks for life. And I think that's a good window. I think, again, especially with dead rock systems that we're seeing that are being put together at 100 mile an hour, they're putting corals in them too fast, too quick. I think
slow.
When you see spots of coralline algae, I think it was Foster and Nilsson, the Modern Coral Reef Aquarium, the early books
from the 90s.
I think, yeah, fantastic.
For the folks out there,
That was the best.
I don't know what they're talking about.
But when I think they said until you see coralline algae, I think maybe Daniel Knott, another one as well, said until you see spots of coralline algae, you should not be planting stony corals in that tank.
I took that idea. I first heard it from Jake Adams.
Yeah, well, that's probably because
keeping Acropora lines with the first signs of coralline algae.
Absolutely, and I think Jake would have read those books like I've read.
Yeah, Going back to selling online, have you ever thought about going retail the way he's thinking to?
Absolutely not. So the reason being,
open the doors, then.
Open
the doors.
Tell us more.
No, absolutely not. So philosophically, I know that I'm leaving heaps of money on the table by not having just like a retail thing.
Yeah, but you have enough sense to know when it's enough.
But I'm also in the middle of nowhere, Ohio.
They will come.
They
will
you
come.
have hours.
Oh, they would
they
come.
Will. We came, and we're not even buying anything. We just came to see.
They might come here. It's almost like you're creating your own prison of sorts. And now you have this thing where you kind of like, you're obligated to be there. You're obligated to have that interaction. And if you outsource that interaction to your staff, you are like rapidly accelerating your turnover, I believe. Like, I think that
and tires them out.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that every employee
definitely
is on a timer to some degree. Love you guys that are watching. Luckily, my staff probably doesn't watch my own podcast, but love them to death. But everybody here is on a timer. And I think that the retail experience speeds that thing.
Are you on a timer?
I'm trying ridiculous levels of stuff to extend my time.
This is what happens when you
I have a massage chair
that thing's
12 feet from my desk.
It's amazing.
Yeah, it's like...
It's funny, isn't it? Because I sort of feel like I need to do this online thing. But retail is, like you said, it tires everyone. My staff are so patient. We are very lucky. We do have extremely good customer base. There are superstar customers that make the staff smile. They bring us in food. They bring us in drinks. Christmas time, you
can't help but love them.
You
become friends with them.
Yeah, absolutely. We love them.
Yeah.
Absolutely love them. I'm just thinking of people in the back of my mind now that we look forward to them. We don't care whether they spend any money. We like to have them in the store. They make us laugh. Stuff. But like you said, in some respects, it is almost like me copying out of not going online is like you not opening your doors to the public. It'd be the same. That's the same vibe, but it's in the reverse.
I don't know. I envy this business.
I envy this business. Absolutely, yeah.
I look up to it. I don't envy it. I'm
I know what you mean. Yeah.
So people are able to come here. It is just by an appointment thing.
Yeah.
That's all.
It's funny, all aquaculture businesses actually, so the one that stands into my mind back at home, I don't think you can run a really good aquaculture business without being closed for a large part of the time.
You need that uninterrupted time.
There's a lot of work.
Loads of
real work that has to happen.
But even with my store, we still have a Monday close day. We used to be Monday, Tuesday close. The reason why we do that, is we're not fools. We need the money. We absolutely need the money. But the reason why we do close, which sometimes really antagonises customers, which is a shame, is because if you want it to look the way it looks, we need the time to work on those displays. We need the time to keep the shots.
That's because you hold your store to a very high standard. It's clean, it's presentable, it's organized. It can't be said
for the nicest store in the UK, guys.
It is.
It's a lot
I never feel like that. I always try.
You're there every day.
Yeah, I always look at it and think, oh, that wood's blown out down there. We need to do that. And look at this and look at that. So I suppose I'm uber critical of my own.
You have any leaks?
I'm never happy.
You have any unrepaired leaks that you're just putting off?
There's some stuff when you look deep, and I don't think anyone's ever happy with a business. Are you completely happy with your business?
All I see is problems.
And me.
No.
Yeah. Isn't that true though of brief? Yeah, it's wicked. But I think, if you're, say for example, you were happy and I was happy, then there's something wrong. I think because reef.
Then you finish. You won the game. You completed it.
What's the point? Isn't that how you run a reef tank? We're never, as a hobbyist, I was a hobbyist, you was a hobbyist, you was a hobbyist. Have you ever owned an aquarium that you're completely happy with?
I think on the aggregate, I would say that I am very happy with this place.
You should be.
But at the same time, operationally, it's my job to just find problems.
Where did this come from, the podcast idea?
So I wanted to have more like conversational stuff like this, just like storytelling and stuff like that, right? Also, I wanted to have a place that was as easy as possible to just hit record. Because if it is not easy to hit record, I'm not going to do it.
No, because it's too much to do.
Right. I don't want to have to like spend a lot of time setting up. No, I've got the space. I'll just dedicate it towards
it's all ready to go like this all the time.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Brilliant.
So anyways, guys, I think that we need to hit dinner soon. I think we're up against it.
I think so.
Yeah.
We can talk more about why you should and shouldn't sell corals online. Well, you're going to do it. You've set up the system.
Well,
this isn't a question if you're doing it.
I'm going to do it anyway. So
no, you just figure out how to.
And Than's going to open this up retail.
Yeah, I don't
know. In your dreams.
Yeah, he's got it right.
In their dreams.
He's got it right.
In their dreams.
In their dreams, I'm sure. Do you not just do one big open day a year?
Oh, hell no.
I love how candid he is.
So anyways, guys, thank you, March, for coming and hanging out. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you for having us.
Hopefully you guys enjoyed our little shop talk session. All right, guys, until next time, happy reefing.